Welcome to another series of JdotAvenuePodcast. And for this week, we're going to discuss grief. Now, grief can be composed of different things. You can grieve the loss of a loved one. You can grieve the loss of someone who is still living, but maybe they have a condition or a disease that specifically Alzheimer's or something of that sort, to where you also have to grieve a loss of a person that you once knew. So grief itself is a complicated subject, but it affects everyone at some point has dealt with this issue. So I'm just going to go over some of the things that I've done over the years that has helped me grieve the loss of loved ones, living and present. You can also grieve the loss of a lover, a friend. So this is something that can be applied to that. Let's start off with how the world typically deals with grief. Usually we see people deal with grief in the sense that they drown themselves in work. You can drown yourselves with your family life. You can use vices such as alcohol, and some use drugs, or just being out and about partying. You use different things to kind of numb the pain so you don't have to think about it. You use different things so you can distract yourselves from dealing with the pain. And we've all done it. We've all been guilty, myself included. And what I noticed is a lot of times, even with clients and other people, is that it definitely doesn't go away. It never goes away. And so these distractions that we kind of use as to heal ourselves is definitely not working, and it definitely isn't healthy. So we're going to also go over the healthy ways of dealing with grief. But I do want to start off by saying that regardless of what you choose to do, there is a need to understand and walk away knowing that the hurt of losing someone never goes away. So this is not a strategy or a method that you can use and everything is all rainbows and butterflies. Definitely not, because grief is something that stays with us. We're going to always grieve that person that we've lost, and you always have that weight there. But what changes is how we deal with it, how we're able to carry that weight. So it's a process that is something that is always there, but we learn how to deal with it over time. So that's the first thing. You need to be patient with yourself and give yourself time. Understand that it is not an overnight process. You're going to be grieving probably for a long time. It could be months, it could be years. And so being realistic with how you show up for yourself is definitely important. And the key is giving yourself time. Another thing that helps is understanding that, life does happen, and this is only a process of life. You specifically weren't targeted to experience this loss. It is just life taking its course. And I know a lot of people who end up using their religion as a source of comfort. So that is also a good, healthy strategy, is to hold on to your faith and use that for some level of understanding, right? We want to understand that they're in a better place. They're no longer in pain. They're no longer suffering. These are things that kind of keep us calm through the storm. Another thing that you want to do, which I touched on, is not give way to any vices, because then that can create another problem that you don't need to be added on to this grieving process. Another thing I want to address that comes up a lot is, while dealing with a lot of people going through grief and trying to counsel them through that, I've noticed that there is this natural assumption and feeling that by us grieving the loss of a loved one, it makes us feel guilty sometimes. You can go into a space of guilt to where you feel like, by grieving this person, I feel like I'm letting go of them, or I'm hurting them by no longer, or trying to heal from this pain. Me trying to heal from the pain, is this like a disrespect to them because I don't want to? You get what I'm saying? It's like you feel like you betray them. That's what I'm looking for. You feel like this betrayal because part of you doesn't want to feel the pain, but then you've associated this pain with how much you love this person. And so you start to think, okay, if I stop hurting, how is this person going to take it? Are they going to think that I don't love them? Right? Because I was so quick to get over them. But grieving is not getting over them. It's not betraying them. Grieving is allowing yourself to continue to move forward, which they would have wanted anyway. So even though you're striving for some sort of normalcy, it in no way tarnishes what moments and memories and love that you share with that person. So that's important for you to think about, because it's one of those things that doesn't show itself. It's not as obvious, but then when you actually sit back, you're like, I wonder if I'm looking at my grieving in the wrong way. So it's not a betrayal to them, and it's not letting them go, and it's not losing them, or erasing them. So learn to disassociate the pain that you feel from the love you had for this person. Disconnect that with the actual memory of that person, if that makes sense. Because they're two different things. You can memorialize and remember a person's contributions to you that are all positive, and you just learn to disconnect that pain, that hurt, that heartache from them. So yeah, that's that. And then another thing that you want to do while you are giving yourself time and being patient with yourself is be honest with yourself. Go to those places that you tend to avoid. Dig deep into the hurt that you experienced. Was there anything left unsaid? I see a lot of times people tend to take grieving very difficult because this is a person who they probably, the last words spoken were probably negative, and they probably said a lot of things that they didn't mean, that were hurtful, and that's kind of like the last place that they were with this person. And so now, knowing that this person has transitioned, it can have some additional pain attached to it, guilt attached to it, because of the space you were in when they transitioned, when they passed. So sit with that. Be honest with yourself. Is this a part of the problem? Is this why it hurts so much more? Because I never got to tell them I love them. I never got to be there. I didn't get to the hospital in time before they left. Maybe they passed away in a car crash doing something that I asked them to go do. They were probably on the road getting something for me. So learn to dig deep into those questions. Figure out where that guilt comes from, where that pain comes from. And if this is someone who you were in close proximity with and there was no disconnect or no issues, then figure out if there are any moments where you and this person did not get along well. Maybe they cheated on you 15 years ago and you brought it up all the time. Do you feel guilty about that now that they're not here? So all of these ugly truths and questions that we tend to avoid, those all resurface when grieving the loss of that loved one. And so it's important to be honest with yourself. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing this in the very beginning because, again, you want to give yourself time. You want to be patient with yourself. Allow yourself to feel the sadness, the pain, the loss, the hurt, the emptiness. Allow yourself to absorb all of these feelings. The anger. Be angry. It's nothing wrong with expressing your feelings. It's just the way that you express them. So we don't want you, of course, throwing things at people. But yeah, if you feel that you just need to throw something, you find healthier ways. I've even suggested to some clients one of those smash houses where you destroy things, and it's like a safe outlet for you to release that anger without hurting someone or harming someone or yourself. Another strategy could be maybe taking up a kickboxing class, doing workouts, going to the gym. Running is also good. Bicycling, any physical activity that is safe but can let out that anger and those feelings is very beneficial in this situation. Another strategy is for your feelings. Definitely talk to someone. A lot of times, I could say for myself. Let me give you myself for an example. Whenever I go through grief, because I went through grief quite a bit, I found that most of the times I felt like I didn't have anyone to go to, and a lot of that dealt was the fact that I was always that person that had to be there for others. So that's usually the space that I'm in, to where I'm always the one that's there for others. I'm always the one holding everybody together, being strong, keeping positive. And for me, going through the different stages of grief with multiple family members, friends, etc., I didn't have that for me. So then it's, well, how do you deal with that? And it definitely wasn't easy. It was very painful to sit and think like, damn, I'm keeping it strong from everyone else. And at first I rejected the need to do that. I rejected the need to heal, be patient with myself. I just distracted myself by being that person for someone else. So I was so busy helping others grieve that I didn't get to grieve myself. And so what ends up happening when you ignore this and you reject it and you try to work yourself, work it off, or help others to kind of distract yourself, what ended up happening was, it was almost like I was becoming a ticking time bomb. I remember just sitting there and I just exploded in emotions, and I had a major breakdown twice. Once was, of course, at the funeral itself, and it caught everybody off guard because I had it all together and the funeral was almost done, and out of nowhere I just lost it. The second time I was at work and I had been grieving the loss of multiple people at the same time. Within a span of, I would say, 3 months, about 8 really close family members and a friend passed away within 3 months of each other. And 2 of those were a week from each other. Were a week from each other where I had just come back from a funeral to the news that a next family member, close friend passed. So that was very difficult for me. And it was even worse because I was one of the last people to see this person. I remember we were having fun, we were partying, we had reunited after so long of not seeing each other, and seeing her, I felt like, okay, because I didn't want to come out in the first place. I just came from a funeral. I just came up from the airport visiting and dealing with the death of my cousin, and so here now I'm back in town and I wasn't going anywhere, and they dragged me out of the house. Come, let's go out and get your mind off of things. And I thought, I'm gonna go, but I'm not gonna have any fun. I'm just gonna go. And while I was there, I saw a really close friend of mine, a girlfriend of mine, that we reconnected, and she was so excited. She had like amazing news to share, and she made the night better. And I remember we were supposed to go home, and she was gonna leave before me, because she went to see her kids and everything. And I remember she was also having fun, and so I was going home, and I said, look, what are you still doing here? You're supposed to be. And she's like, yeah, I'm coming right behind you. I'm right behind you. And we jumped in the car and talked a little bit, and I drove off. We left, and she literally was getting in her car shortly after we left, and we went home. And that morning is when we got the call that she passed away, and she was in someone hit her. It was like a hit and run. They hit her car and drove off. No one saw anything, and she died instantly. And I can't forget how sad I was, and the amount of sadness. And it took a while for me to grasp the fact that I was one of the last people to see her before she passed. And that fact alone, and the fact that I also knew that her life had turned around, her life was so great. Like, she was about to, get married, and like, she had a whole new lease on life that she deserved. So she was actually like getting all her blessings, and all she kept saying was she can't wait to get home to see her kids, and she never got to do that. And so that sat with me. And so I got up and I got dressed to go to work, and I remember thinking, well, let me just work it off so I wouldn't have to think about anything. And then me going to work, just feeling numb, and then having a meeting. And I remember while at this meeting, we went to lunch, because it was a training. And when we went to lunch, one of my coworkers was talking about how her husband, he got a call. I think he was a paramedic, and he went to this horrible accident, and she started describing the location. And I remember, like, like when your body feels like cold and jittery, but at the same time there's this warmness. It's just this eerie feeling, and my nerves started going crazy. And I remember saying, yeah, that was my friend. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. because I'd already told a couple of people, you know, like, today's not a good day, this is what happened. So I said, yeah, that was her. And I remember breaking down. And just the fact that I was one of the last people to see her was what bothered me the most. The fact that she was also getting her blessings that she deserved. She had been through a lot, and she only wanted to go to church, only wanted to see her friends, her kids, and she never got to do that. All those things bothered me. And the fact that the coincidence that I would see her right when I came from grieving, well, dealing with another funeral, and I hadn't even grieved that loss either. So it just goes to show you how everything comes full circle. And me again trying to be strong for everyone else, still going to work, still showing up at home, pretending like nothing happened, living life like normal. So I did the same thing. I put more work onto myself, did overtime. I was barely home. And then other deaths had occurred. And by this time I was so numb, right? I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm numb. And then I got another call. And this was around the holidays, Christmas time, a little weeks before. And I was working like crazy. Mind you, I hadn't grieved at all any of the death that I already had to deal with. And I got another call that my cousin passed away. And I just remember being at work. It was a text. I remember being at work and I just wanted to hide. Because, and I never forget, everyone was looking for me. Where's she? I was leading a team at a hospital, managing, and they were all looking for me. And I remember just wanting to sink and hide, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I broke down. And then after breaking down, I decided to go home early. And I had, the person who I was with at the time picked me up. And I remember my son was in the car. And my son was the only one who kind of recognized, Mommy, what's wrong? Something's wrong. And he was so little, so innocent. And I just broke down. I couldn't hold it in. And the person I was with at the time was just so weirded out because they didn't know how to deal with or how to be emotionally available. So it was horrible. So I'll leave it at that. But the point is, no matter how much you try to inundate yourself in work and force yourself to go on with your normal schedule, life has a way of breaking you down even more, because that is needed. That reality is needed. You need to check in with yourself and actually try to heal from those spaces. We tend to sweep them under the rug and we expect for them to disappear, but they're still under the rug. They do not disappear. All those feelings are there. The best thing you can do is deal with them then. Just deal with them then, and I get it. Some of us are not built like that. Not everyone's built to deal with things as they come. I get it. So while you're trying to distract yourself, right? Just be mindful and be careful that you distracting yourself is not delaying your healing. And that's the message, is just, you can distract yourself temporarily to give yourself time. But go back under that rug, sweep it out, clear it out when you're by yourself, when you have those moments. This is why we have, grievance periods, and we can take vacation and take time off. Utilize those resources in the work environment to help you heal. So it's okay to distract yourself because it's so random, it happens and you're already at work. I get it. But once you go home, once you take time off, focus on healing that, because don't wait till 5-10 years later and you're somewhere else and you have another breakdown and you can't explain it. And you're like, well, where did that come from? Because it was just sitting there and something triggered it. So you have to be mindful, be careful, take care of your health to do that. Certain ways that I have dealt with grief that have been helpful. I mentioned to you doing physical activity. That is always helpful. And speaking to someone. That is also helpful. Find someone to talk to. If you are the strong person in your family or in your group, you're the one who checks in on everyone. You're the one who helps others heal. There's no one for you to do that. Find someone. Even if you join a Facebook group, even if you join like a Facebook group or anything to where there's others who are grieving as well, do that. If you are even able to join a more specialized group for the particular situation, and that's in the case of any diseases. If a certain disease has taken your loved one from you, or a certain car crash or drunk driving situation, there are groups that are geared towards helping those whose family members' lives have been taken from those situations. Join one of those groups, because they will give you even more information. They will share with you their stories, which is kind of why I'm sharing my stories. Because sometimes hearing that someone has been through it and what they've done is what is helpful to you. Another thing that I used to do, that I continue to do, is I align my how do I say this? I do certain things depending on the family member or friend. So, for example, whatever me and that person shared in common, whatever memories we had, I tie that in to how I memorialize them. So, and how I honor them daily. If me and this person used to like to go to the beach, I will schedule a day to go to the beach in honor of this individual. If this is someone who is very religious and maybe that's something that we have in common, then I might get like little trinkets to commemorate that person. And another thing I do like to do is plant and garden. I use gardening as a source of healing, and to honor them, because I feel like for me, and this may not be for everyone, what helps me grieve is that feeling that I'm able to honor that person that has transitioned. So for me, being able to spin it in a way where I'm honoring them and I'm leaving something behind, or creating something in this lifetime that represents them and symbolizes who they were and the love I have for them, if I can do that, it kind of carries on, like they carry on through that act or thing. So maybe I'll plant a tree or a flower that has a special meaning, and I tie that into them. Plant their favorite tree, their favorite flower, something. And I love gardening ideas because how I look at it, because remember, it's about your perspective that will get you through this. How I tend to look at those things is, this person is living through this plant, living through this tree or flower. So I can't control the fact that they transitioned in this lifetime, but I can create something that continues to live on in memory of them. And that has helped me out a lot when it comes to grieving. So I definitely do that. I do certain activities that they would have liked to do. If that person was someone who loved to fish, I make sure, and maybe I never done fishing before, but I may start taking my kids out to go fish because it's that connection. I might visit certain places that they love to go because, again, you can kind of feel their spirit, their soul, you feel them there, and it's just comforting to have that. So those are things that I do. Also, if you want to donate, donations are also great. Donate to their cause, a cause that they were very serious about, or what, if there was any disease that they had, you may want to donate to that cause as well. That also helps. Motivational speaking also. You can go out and speak to people and tell your story. Tell their story to honor them. Maybe they suffered with lupus, so then you may want to go out and speak and be a advocate for those with lupus and use it to encourage and leave that footprint in this world for them. So that's very important. And so when I look at it that way, that is what has helped me get through a lot of grieving that I've had to do. And that's grieving someone who has transitioned. For those of us who are grieving someone who is currently living, and this of course could be not only disease but heartbreak as well. So I'll do both of them separately. If you're grieving someone who is sick, there's two types of grieves that happen. There's two phases. You first have to grieve the loss of the person that you once knew, right? So you have to grieve the loss of that person who's no longer there. Whether they're sick physically or mentally. Maybe you knew this person to be a very strong, athletic person. That was their life. And now they can no longer get up and walk, and they're just deteriorating in front of you. Grieve the loss of that person that you once knew. Understand what is happening. Understand the disease progression and how everything is changing. And understand that it doesn't erase who they were. It doesn't erase who they were. It doesn't erase that they existed. They were still always a strong person, and they still are. It's just their strengths are maybe not physical anymore, but maybe their strength is more spiritually, right? Because even though they're in pain or hurting, they're putting on a happy face for you. They're thinking about you. So look at it that way, because then you kind of empower them. And the next phase is you getting yourself slowly in the process of grieving that, okay, this person is not going to always be here, and maybe they're terminally ill and they only have 3 months to live, but you have to start the grieving process ahead of time, and focus on helping providing a place of peace for them. I think that is key, because if you don't do that, you put yourself in a position to where you're gonna have a harsh reality hit you so hard randomly, and you may lose self-control. It's typical that I see this, that you tend to lose self-control because it's just this harsh reality that you weren't prepared to receive. And it's not like you didn't know, but it's the difficulty of letting go of who I knew, because that's probably what made them great. But find new things that make them great during this transition. So again, like I mentioned, maybe now they're spiritually strong. Use that. And I know it's easier said than done, but again, be patient with yourself. Take the time to make those little baby steps. You can't do it all in one shot. It's not going to work. Some people tend to also, I did this too. I used my role as a mother to help me get over certain things. And I kind of used that as a distraction, but I made sure not to sit there. So what I mean by that is, for example, you may have lost a younger family member, or you may have lost one of your own children. And so you use that loss to motivate you to hold on tighter to your other children who are still here, or your other children who are not sick and have more of a longer prognosis as far as how long they're going to be here. So if I have a child who has cancer, and I'm starting to lose them, I may hold on tighter to the kids that are at home as a way to distract me. Even when they transition, I'm going to hold on to the other kids tighter. I'm going to be more focused on my role as a mother. And so we tend to do those things to motivate us to keep going, and that's fine. I think that's a healthy way of doing it. You just have to make sure you're always checking yourself to make sure that you're not overbearing or becoming paranoid. That would be my advice. What else for those who are currently living but you're grieving? As far as, so that's disease. So let's do heartbreak. If you're going through a heartbreak and you're grieving the loss of a lover or a friend, oftentimes I see people tend to do this by initially trying to replace that person. Personally, I don't think that's healthy. That's usually the advice I give, even to clients, just to replace the person with someone else. Because then, think about it this way, that's not giving the other person a fair chance at truly being your friend, because you're not friends with them for any other reason other than to use them to get over someone else. So you're already going into it kind of wrong. What I would suggest, which is the complete opposite, when you're grieving a relationship of whatever sort, it's best to have time to yourself. That to me sounds more healthy. Have time to yourself. Figure out, okay, what is this loss about? How did the heartbreak happen? What role did I have to play in it? Go through all of that, and make peace with what happened there. By doing this, you're able to sort out all the details, and now you can actually focus on yourself. Well, how do I change that and fix that for the next time? Okay, so if I go into the next situation, I need to put up a boundary. I need to enforce them. All of those things are important to do, and that will help you deal with the process of the heartbreak. If the heartbreak or the broken friendship, whatever grief you're experiencing, if that happened because of something you did, and you have some kind of role to play, or you're guilty for whatever reason, then again, you definitely need time to yourself. Well, why did I behave that way? Why did I do this? How could I hurt them like that? I shouldn't have done that. Next time I'm not going to do that. So it's staying to yourself to do self-reflection, right? And then it's coming up with a plan, at least for the future, of how this has encouraged you or influenced you to behave differently in the future with the next relationship. And so understanding that about yourself is very important. And then, yeah, so that's it. I think grieving loss of a heartache, that just requires time. I think people are looking for, usually when it comes to grief, people just tend to have this feeling that I want to find something to just make it all go away. And that definitely is not possible. It can't just go away. It's never going to go away. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you've lost your mother or your father or your cousin or your brother, that you're going to get to a place where you never miss them. That doesn't exist. You're always going to miss them. They're always going to be in your mind. And so you're never going to miss them being accessible to you. You're not going to miss them being here. You're not going to miss, like that doesn't go away. You're going to miss them being here. You're going to miss the phone calls. You're going to miss the text messages. You're going to miss the parties and the hangouts. You're going to miss all of that, the jokes. Use those memories to remember how wonderful they made your life. And just because they're no longer here doesn't mean that your life can no longer be wonderful without them. You have those memories. And I know for those who are very spiritual, some who are very religious, you tend to have the belief that they're there with you in spirit. Use that to keep going forward. You know they're seeing what you're doing. They're watching. They're there with you. They're looking over you. And try to see the beauty in that. But yes, you're going to always miss them. It doesn't go away. And you shouldn't want it to go away, right? You want to be able to miss what they did. And it's okay to be selfish in the beginning and cry because you want them right here with you. But all healing is going to do in the grieving process, it just makes it easier to keep moving forward. So it makes it easier to deal with, and that's the goal. It's not to erase what happened. It's so that it would hurt a little less, so that way you can function in the world. And you want to do that in a healthy way. So instead of numbing with drugs or alcohol, you learn to do it in a sober way. And so that way it's more long lasting, because then you can kind of get dependent on those substances. So that's mostly what I wanted to talk about as far as grieving is concerned. You have the YouTube channel. Check out the IG page. If you are struggling with any issues that you need to address, talk about, or any subjects that you'd like to get any advice on, I'm more than willing to help. So just send a DM and we'll get back to you. But for now, in the meantime, good luck on your grieving journey. Please be patient with yourself. Do not rush yourself, and it's perfectly okay. There's no time frame. There's no one with a stop clock that is telling you how long it takes. You take all the time you need.